Hey, Juan here. In today's video, let's talk about the difference between problem space and solution space. Something that happens relatively often when you are talking with somebody from your team, either from a stakeholder like sales, customer success, even product people, or when you're talking with your customers, is when you ask about what they need, they typically tell you the solution that they need, but they rarely tell you the problem. It's difficult many times for people to be able to explain what problem are they trying to solve. So if you see somebody outside a restaurant and you ask them why are they there, they probably are going to tell you that they are there to eat pizza. But they're not necessarily going to tell you that they're there because they're hungry and they want something that is tasty and that fills them in and is some kind of a comfort food. Dan Olsen, in his book, The Lean Product Playbook, talk about this concept of the solution space versus the problem space. And of course, it goes on the other way around because you always have to start with a problem, not with a solution. But if you think about it, it's very important that you are able to define in one kind of a bubble what the problems that the customer has are, and in another bubble, what the solutions that the customer can have are. So it's very important that you define those two and that you pay attention to both of them and that you research them so you are able to identify first those needs so you can build the correct solutions. Because if you don't understand the needs, most likely the solutions that you're building are not going to be the correct ones. Obvious. So starting with the problem space, the first thing that you have to think is that most of the users are not going to be able to tell you why are they doing something. They're going to tell you what are they doing, but not necessarily why are they doing it. So this requires a lot of work usually to understand and to take deeper dives on why they want to do something, why they want to eat pizza. There's many good reasons why somebody would want to eat pizza. There's also some bad reasons why people would want to eat pizza. That's a different story, but let's not go there. But the understanding of what are the reasons for them to find that appealing, that's going to help you a lot if you want to build a restaurant and give them pizzas. That is going to be then in the solution space. But before you make the decision of making that restaurant and actually serving pizzas, you should understand really well what the problem that the users or the customers are having is. There are good reasons why the customers cannot tell you what the problem is that many times we as people don't tend to think in that kind of way. We are not able necessarily to tell you why we are doing something. We are not just reasoning every single move. We tend to be reactive in many of the things that we do, and that's fine for most of the cases, but it's difficult to understand a problem. And sometimes as a customer or as a user, you don't even know that you have a problem. So think, for example, when Apple came up with the iPhone. Okay, there were already some smartphones out there, but they were not getting very good traction. And you could argue the same about electric cars in the very beginning. Just forget about when Tesla came and tried to go mainstream. The type of cars and the type of phones that were in the very beginning, they were more done for a very niche audience. And most of the other people were like, well, not for me. This is just for somebody that's have very specific interests. But it's not something that the rest of the people find appealing. When you want to create a product that appeals to those underserved or even unknown needs that the customer has, then you have to understand really well what those needs of the users are and be able to create that need that they don't have at this point. And this is why it's very difficult to understand that there is a problem, because from the point of view of the customer, heck no, I don't have any problem. So how do you do this? Well, basically what you have to do is user research, and that on itself could be a whole different topic and another video, and I will link it down below because I have covered this in the past. But basically what you had to do is research the needs of that potential audience, the potential customers that you want to have, and understand them better. Understand them better as persons, understand better their needs and their curiosity, their worries and their motivations. This way, you are going to be able to understand better what those problems that they have are, and potentially in the future, you're going to be able to build those solutions for them. The idea with user research is that you want to understand better the problem, and you want to also be able to validate if the problem exists and if the problem affects a relatively large amount of people that would make it reasonable to build a product for them. If it affects only one or two people in the whole world, then usually it shouldn't be a product, it might be a service. Completely different story there. And if you don't know as a product manager how to do user research, is completely fine. Usually you have to work with somebody like a user researcher, product designer, UX designer, whatnot, depends on the company. The title is going to be different. Usually they're going to be the experts in doing user research. Work with them. They are going to help you a lot. And now let's move to the solution space. When you're thinking, for example, that a customer wants pizza, that belongs to the solution space. It doesn't belong to the problem space. In that moment, you are defining what the solution is, what the potential product is going to be. And if you think about any product out there, any product that you know, they all belong to the solution space. They don't belong to the problem space. And the same applies to product designs that you see there. All those cool designs, cool usability that Apple has, solution space, not problem space. Problem space would be that you want your customers to get lost. You want them to find the value as soon as possible. How would you find the solutions? Basically, what you're going to have to do is work a lot on prototypes and work with those users that you want to reach or those customers that you want to reach and validate those potential prototypes with them. You're never going to nail it in the first time. And if you do, you're probably one of the luckiest persons on earth, at least among the product community, because it's very rare that the first prototype that you build is what the customers need. What you're going to have to do is iterate over time, change it, and potentially what you build at the very beginning, it has little to nothing to do with the first stages of the product. Although the value proposition might be the same, but the looks and feels of the product might be completely different. Prototyping can be done many different ways. It can be done with mock-ups of UX designs that you validate with the customer so you can see if the experience follows what they would, understand how it should work. For example, done with Figma, which is a great tool to do prototyping. By the way, the video is not sponsored by Figma, it's sponsored by the like button. You can also validate these prototypes by building MVPs, which is usually a feature set that might have little to badly usability, but you don't want to necessarily at that point validate the usability and the user experience. You want to validate that the solutions and the features that you're building are the correct ones. Don't throw your MVP necessarily, especially a very rough MVP necessarily to everybody out there, just to selected customers that they understand how this is working. And potentially you are even telling them that, hey, this is an MVP, it's very rough. We just want to validate the features. We want to make sure that while we are building something that makes sense, we will come to work with you in the design in different sessions. So always keep that in mind when you have this kind of interactions with your users. At least from my point of view, I'd rather be honest than get disappointed users. As you are identifying the solution, especially when you are building the prototypes with the designs, you are probably going to start to identify better what are the features that you are going to need. For example, you're going to need, user rights, access management. What is the kind of best experience that you want to give to your customers? And if you're thinking about the pizza, what are the toppings that you want? What kind of restaurant do you want to build? What kind of experience those customers that you're trying to target do they want to have? Do they want to feel like they're in a real Italian restaurant, or do they want to feel like they're in a super fancy restaurant, or do they want to feel like I don't know what? That's something that you will understand better the more you iterate and interact with your customers. And yes, some of the things that I just mentioned there might belong more to the problem space, and some of them will belong more to the solution space. And as I said earlier, this is going to be an iterative process that you are going to develop over time, and that your product is going to be modified and evolving as you have more relation and more conversation with your customers, understanding better what they need and how they expect this to work. So as I said earlier, it's very important that you spend probably a lot of your time understanding better the problem that your customers have. That is going to put you in a much better place to build the solutions that your customers need. And in the end, what we want to build are successful products. The more we understand the problems, the more successful our solutions are going to be. Many times what happens in companies, and especially in tech companies even now, is that somebody comes saying that we just need another drop down in our already kind of cluttered dialogue because our customer wants to have more options there. Usually that ends up in really bad design, really bad experience, products that are very difficult to use and that have a very high learning curve, which means that most of your audience kind of has vanished because your product has become extremely niche. And yes, it might serve very well those few customers, but it might have a huge problem serving other customers. And the same happens with if you just go with a very quick one that I just want to build a pizzeria because people love pizza. Great, it is true. That is just jumping to a solution right away without understanding really what kind of problems do you want to solve with your pizzeria. As I said, problem space and solution space is something that is covered by Dan Olson in his book. If you're interested, in the description I have linked some of my favorite books out there, so you can go and take a look. In this video I talk a lot about user research, researching and prototyping. If you want to know more about researching, go check out this video. If you like the channel and you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. I will see you in the next one, and remember, stay safe.